It's Rick with Sketch with Rick, and we're back for another edition. Today we're going to do a sketch from one of my favorite locations, Key West, Florida, and it's a place down there called Sloppy Joe's Bar. So today I'm going to focus my comments probably on three big areas. The first one is using negative space when you are sketching, and we'll talk about what that means as we go along. The second one is to use your underlying sketch to keep things simple and organized when there might be a lot going on in your picture, and there's a little bit going on in this one. So I'll show you what I mean by that. And the third one is to use strong values, lots of some dark areas to give some pop to the picture and to keep it interesting. And we'll talk about that as well. All right, so let's get started. Hey guys, this is the reference photo for today, and it's available as a download if you look below. One thing I forgot to say, please make sure you like and subscribe so I can keep making these videos. All right, let's get started. All right, so we're getting started. And when I talk about using your underlying drawing to keep things simple, the first thing you want to do is lay out some of those big shapes. That's what I'm doing here. I'm getting that the building laid out. This photo is 2-point perspective, so it's got the horizon line going back in two different directions, to the right of that building, and then to the left of the building it's going back to a separate point. Your vertical lines in this case are then going to be nice and straight. And when you're talking about negative space, you're talking about essentially referencing, the way I look at it is referencing one item off the other. So for example, with the arches that are over the center of the building, I'm referencing where the columns were, there's those like sort of vertical brick columns, and where they reference against the arches, and I try to get them in the right spot. Or for example, that building that's to the right that recedes behind the roof line at an angle, you try to get the angle there to go through the, hit the building where it was. Now the other thing I like to do is I start out with those big shapes in the pencil, and then I go back and I draw in, for example here I'm drawing in all the people that are standing around. And again, from a negative space perspective, I try to get them where I see them behind things referencing against the photo. But what you'll see is in a minute, when I get to the pen and ink, I'll start with the people because they're in the foreground, and I want to kind of get my important foreground elements drawn in. That's what I'm doing now here with my fountain pen. And I want to get the foreground elements drawn in before I start working on the building and things, so I don't end up, kind of intersecting my lines through the people. And so that's how you use that underlying drawing to keep it simple and organized, right? If you tried to if I just tried to start with a pen and ink, it would end up being a mess, because I need to get the big shapes in and know that I've got them laid out right. And if I try to do that and try to get the people in at the same time, nothing's going to end up working out for me. This way I've got all of my proportions the way I want. And the other thing is then with the underlying drawing, you have confidence that you've got the dimensions and the proportions the way you want them before you start with your pen and ink. So when you go and draw that person in, you don't have to worry about, is he the right size compared to what I meant, and is the palm tree the right size, or the street light the right size? You've already done that hard work, and you can adjust it with your pencil before you start with your pen, so you have confidence. The negative space, the other thing is you're looking at, so for example, that building in the background, I think I mentioned that, you kind of make sure that intersecting line that hits the center of the Sloppy Joe's roof, you're looking at the angles as well, sort of that angle that's coming out of it. I don't know what that is, maybe a 30-degree angle between the two lines that's coming out of it. And you're just constantly referring back to your photo, and you can make those adjustments as you go. but by using the photo and referencing, for example, again, like that awning where those arches are against for example, those vertical brick columns, you'll do a much better job if you are constantly referring back and forth on those things. And it just comes with practice. It just comes with practice. And you'll see, by the way, I actually ended up adding a couple of people that I didn't originally draw in, the ones that are right in front of that palm tree, because you know they are in the reference photo, and at first I wasn't going to draw them in, but then I decided it makes for a better transition on that palm tree on the ground as opposed to just having the palm tree. It is just stuck in the cement there, but essentially, but I think it looks a little nicer by having them sort of mask it, and it was how it was in the photograph. But you know, you can edit people out, you can edit items out. I like to keep a lot of the details in because I think it's what gives the drawing interest. I think sometimes people really edit out so much to the point where it looks sterile. So I try to keep a lot of things in there as much as I can. Wires and lights and little things like that. You'll see in a minute, oh, I'm starting with the lettering now. One thing, I don't do the letters sort of from left to right. I typically end up on something like this. I'll start with the letters in the center and kind of work my way on either side of it just to get the spacing the way I want. You can use your pencil as well on that if you want to get your letters organized and spaced properly. I guess I've just done it enough times I felt confident with that one. But there's nothing wrong with using your pencil there as well. Now in a minute you're going to see how I start using the strong values. You can see right now if you blurred your eyes right now as you're looking at this photo, it's kind of dull. It's just, you know, it's a lot of thin lines and you know, it looks sort of like the item, but it doesn't have a lot of interest yet. But in a minute when I'm going to add, I'm using a thick Faber-Castell artist pen, and it's got a very thick line. And it'll, if you sort of blur your eye again, you'll see just the picture itself, you know, pops because of the dark areas. So what I was doing here is I was adding some shadow lines with my pen first, and again I'll get to the marker in a minute, but it's always important to make sure you have your shadows in there on a light side and a shadow side. Even if you're drawing, or if your reference photo doesn't have a strong shadow side, you almost want to add one because you got to have some shadows to give ground things and give it interest. Just putting in some brick there, and all you have to do for brick, you don't have to draw every brick. You just got to draw a signal of the brick, you know, a couple of lines here and there. And if you look closely, that's what I did. Now I'm putting in that, using that marker pen, artist marker, to add the real strong values. And you'll see if you blur your eye, like I said, it gives it a little bit more interest. And so I'm just kind of going through now and finding places where I think I need it. Using my eraser now to take away my original pencil lines. And, you know, just kind of touching up. Even when I get done here, you'll see I went back in the final photograph I have of it. I added a couple extra details at the very end in terms of shadows. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a few tricks and tips today. And I hope you get out there and do some sketching too. Feel free to send me any comments, post any comments, any questions. And again, please be sure to like and subscribe. All right. Take care until next time.